Network, and we are with you again on another week, another beautiful week where football exists in America. Um, it is officially football season, and with that being said, we are going to start it off with some Lions conversation. So, there's a couple kind of big things that we'll get out of the way, just to begin. Um, as we've talked about many, many, many times on this show, Zadarius Smith. Um, I'm sure it's been talked about many, many times on every show that talks about the Lions in the past few months because that's kind of where we're all at. We're all wondering what's going on with Zadarius Smith. Well, today, Brad Holmes decided to give us a little tidbit, I guess you could call it. He basically said that they are still in contact with Zadarius, and he says it's a two-way street, which, makes sense. I think what he's kind of getting at is that, like, the player has to agree on terms and the team has to agree on terms, and right now they're just not there yet. He did kind of give an inkling that training camp might be a part of it. And, we mentioned that on the show maybe last week or 2 weeks ago now, that we both kind of figured that was the case. Okay. And, it does sound like as, the preseason games go by, the chance that Zadarius Smith is a Lion this season goes up, in my opinion, simply because of Brad said it this way. He said, where is it? I lost my line now. He just he mentioned that like missing training camp isn't a like big deal, and he basically was just like, yeah, I mean, if he does, he does. That's we'll see what happens essentially. So I feel like that's kind of part of the conversation there too. I mean, obviously Zadarius wants his money first. Like that's the big sticking point, of course. But I also think, him being, 32 years old, been in the league for almost a decade or over a decade now. And he's one of those guys that like he's just like, look, he literally said it a couple months ago. Detroit is the only place that I want to be. So I feel like there's a way that we get this done. I just feel like it makes a lot of sense, and I just feel like the fact that he said that kind of points to, the training camp thing being kind of the sticking point, because if he wants to play this year, Detroit's the only place he wants to play. Put two and two together, and you're welcome. Um, basically. So, James, do you have anything to add on that before we move on?
I mean, you hit the nail on the head, as you said, as we said. I think at this point, my 51% would be to re-signing him. And I know we've been harping on it since the draft, even that we wanted him re-signed, and we were both kind of surprised we cut him in the first place. But I do think, as you mentioned, I think he's just trying to, not trying to. I think he's skipping camp, kind of like a just veteran wear and tear obligations, kind of just as you mentioned. I was looking it up as you mentioned it. He is 32 years old. Um, the grizzled veteran that he is, being 1 year younger than me, and but yeah, I think he basically the tea leaves are basically just telling me that he doesn't want to go through training camp. Training camp's a bitch. I mean, anyone who's played football knows that. Obviously,
Mm-hmm.
we know that, and we haven't played on a NFL level, of course. So as long as he comes back, I'm fine with it. Like it reminds me the last couple years how I think it was either Wednesdays or Thursdays, but Ragnow took like a scheduled day off of practice every single week.
Mm-hmm.
I think the very last year he played, I think Kelvin Johnson skipped practice. I think he just was showing up, taking mental reps, and then just played football on Sundays.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, I'm not gonna make a big deal out of this. I would I am guessing at this point because I don't want to just make shit up, but I wouldn't be surprised if like he already has the defensive playbook and they're like, here, learn this while we're figuring this part out, so that way you can learn the new terminology and then we can put pen to paper and give you your money when it's time. But that way you don't have to catch all the way back up to speed, so to speak.
Yeah, and like, let's be honest here, okay? Zadarius Smith is not a fucking quarterback, folks. What's he got to do? Show up? Hey, go rush the passer. Gotcha, will do. What the fuck? Like, he's not a linebacker. He's not a corner. He doesn't have to figure out, like, fucking coverages and all this shit. Like, yes, there are calls that need to be made and things like that, but I would assume the verbiage is pretty much the same from last year because Kelvin Shepard, it was there. I know he wasn't the defensive coordinator, but I mean, it's kind of like the John Morton situation. Why change it if you don't have to? So I just feel specifically with the defensive lineman, like it might be the one and only position where you truly can like sign a guy the day of a game and play. And he could probably do okay as long as he's talented, of course. But I just feel like it's not like he had, like I said, it's not like he has to learn the different coverages or like the different run defenses they deploy or make any calls or anything like that. He's just got to be like, okay, this means slant right, this means slant left, this means this means that, this
Yeah,
means contain, that kind of shit.
if he has to learn the coverages, there's bigger issues.
Yeah,
So,
right, right. We might have more of a problem at linebacker than we thought, if that's the case. But no, I totally agree with what you said. It is not a big deal at all, and I'm kind of fine with that. I mean, as long as we get him, that's all I
right,
care
as
about at
long as
this
we get
point.
them, yes.
Like shit, just come on over, man. We're everything is good to go. With that being said, though, kind of on a similar point, Brad Holmes in the same interview, and I didn't mention this before. This was on 97.1, which anyway, and we will leave that at that. Um, Brad Holmes mentioned Marcus Davenport has looked really good. Says if healthy, he is the perfect guy to have across from Hutch, like in terms of stylistically, And I am reading through the tea leaves here, so I mean this is just my thoughts on that. I assume it's because Hutch is more of like a like for lack of a better term, he's a motorhead, if that makes any sense. Like he just has the
Man,
motor as a true. He just has the motor like to just keep going. And it's not because, let me say it this way. I'm not saying he is not a good athlete. That's not where I'm going with this. But Aiden Hutchinson has his physical limitations. I think we can all agree with this. His arms are not the longest for his position. It's not ideal. He doesn't have ideal like speed necessarily, but he makes up for it with the motor and just having a super deep bag of moves that he can use. So I think what Brad Holmes means by that is Marcus Davenport's kind of the opposite in like every way. I mean, if you think about it, he is a physical specimen. Excuse me. I do have acute bronchitis, so I might be coughing a decent amount through this
I was gonna say, you
podcast.
good,
So,
man? Like,
yeah,
okay.
just so everyone is aware. So, apologize in advance. Um, where was I? Marcus Davenport. So, Marcus Davenport is, tall, long, athletic, like doesn't have the deepest bag, but he can really push the pocket with just straight power and agility as well. So I think that's kind of what Brad Holmes was mentioning with the perfect guy across from Hutch because they get home in different ways. So it gives each tackle a different uh, thing to deal with, basically, for lack of a better term. Um, with that being said, Hutch, as we've talked about many times on this show, has looked amazing. Apparently, he has looked like better than ever. And I know I said this last week, but it just keeps happening every week. It's like they're just like this dude is too fucking good. We can't do anything. It's gotten to the point in practice where Dan Campbell has come up with this thing he calls the Hutch rule, where if Hutch gets a sack, it just doesn't count. That's it. Just doesn't count. They're like, all right, cool, good job, Hutch. Offense, keep going. It's like because if not, the offense apparently can't get anything going. So if that is any indication on what season Hutch is going to have this year, he might break the record in sacks. Okay, I'm just going to say that because if think about it this way, guys, he's going up against Panay Sewell and Decker, sort of. He's been going up against probably Skipper a lot at that spot, but he's going up against Panay Sewell and he's getting home. He's going up against Dan Skipper. Well, love you, Dan. That's not saying a lot necessarily when you're a guy like Hutch. You know, he's a backup. I love you, but it is what it is. Just being honest here. And then if he's able to do this against the offensive line that we have, that tells me that he's on another level. I mean, we didn't hear about it like this necessarily last year, which I will say could be because of the injury. Maybe people are, blowing it up a little bit. But with that being said, I just kind of find that pretty wild. What are your thoughts?
As we mentioned in past weeks, it's always nice to hear that Hutch is doing well, of course. People are saying, everyone, even non-Lions fans are asking how does he bounce back from his injury? What's he going to look like? I had faith that, I mean, don't get me wrong, it sucks that you break your leg, but they heal. You didn't lose. It wasn't like a tendon issue where you might not come back as strong, so to speak. I don't think he's going to be in the habit of breaking his shin bones. I don't think he's shin bone injury prone from now on. Like, it happened. It was a freak accident. It
That
sucks.
was a bar, by the way. Just saying.
But we are. I think like it's not going to be a chronic issue. So he's back, which is great. I feel like he's gained a step. I don't know if he's just hungrier because he knows how shitty it is to be on the sideline slash press box watching your team. I know he mentioned that he wanted to make it back if we made the Super Bowl, which now we know, of course, he wouldn't. Um, it would you literally have to be Superman to do that. Although, if anyone, it might be him. Um, but kind of what I pointed at, and I don't want to go make this into a rant because I will rant a little bit about this when I do my Tiger segment, is just because one half of the team is doing really well, in this case the defense and Aiden Hutchinson, doesn't mean someone else is terrible. Like I know you mentioned Skip, and like you said, he is a great six lineman. Like if everyone's healthy, he's not a starter, so it's not dragging him. It's just pointing out. Obviously, if you beat Skip for a sack, and your name is Aiden Hutchinson or Micah Parsons, it's not exactly noteworthy. No offense to him, but he has had constant, or I would say consistent, not constant, consistent success against Panay Sewell, who is elite. And then every week I do see comments on each and every article about Hutch's success asking if Panay's taken a step back. And I'm like, God, like, I know people are a fan of DJ Reed, our new corner one. If St. Brown smokes him on a route, does DJ Reed suck, or is St. Brown that good? Like,
Well,
you're allowed
James,
to have.
obviously, football is a sport that only matters what you do on one play. It doesn't matter what you do on the rest. I mean, let's be
Yeah.
real here. It's like if you fuck up once, you're just terrible. You shouldn't play again. You should be cut. That's what I think. Cut him. Panay Sewell, get cut. Sorry.
When it comes, like I said, I do want to keep the focus here on baseball or on football, but when it comes to the baseball topic, there is a lot of comments about the Tigers of people saying exactly that after one bad game, and I'm just like, okay, I'll get off my soapbox for that one and for at least another few minutes here. But yeah, Hutch looks great. It's obviously good news. I can't wait to see, and I'm sure you're going to touch on it. I heard a lot of good things about Tyleik Williams as well in practice, and I can't wait to see what this D line looks like if we do get Zadarius Smith back, if Marcus Davenport is still healthy, and we get Aleem McNeil back. So that way, hopefully, it could be a Zadarius Smith, Aleem McNeil, Tyleik Williams, and Hutch, because I think that is quite the formidable line, and that will make just everyone else on the defense's job easier. So while we're already hearing good things about what we have now, on paper and hopefully in reality, it can only get better from here, barring injury. Knock on wood.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I totally agree with that too. Like you mentioned with Tyleek specifically, and we were going to talk about this later, but we'll talk about it now since we brought it up. He apparently has been looking really good as well in training camp, which is an awesome thing. And like you mentioned with McNeil coming back at some point, like our defensive line could be dominant. And this is even without Levi Onwuzurike. Obviously, like we mentioned, Zadarius Smith would be a great addition, but the perfect addition, some would say, maybe.
I
Um,
would, yeah.
I would, yeah, I
Yep.
would agree with that. I would say that really all we need right now is another pass rusher, and obviously it sucks that Levi is gone, but I do feel we have a pretty deep interior defensive line group, especially guys like when guys like Makai Wingo come back. I think he's going to be a pretty big addition for us, which he
Pascal
should be
can
back. Yeah, Pascal as well.
Pascal can move inside a little bit as well.
Yeah, and like Pat O'Connor's another guy we've talked about before that I really like. The rookie from Houston.
Lopez.
He's been Roy Lopez as well. Yes, I'm a big fan of Roy Lopez. As anyone who read my article on him when we signed him, I love him based on the film. I mean, he could be literally. I think he could be our Levi Onwuzurike replacement, and I don't think it's really gonna. We're not gonna lose a lot, in my opinion. We'll see if that is the case, but with Levi going down, now he's going to get a lot more snaps. So that's another thing to keep an eye on. Which speaking of players that are impressing on the defensive side of the ball, Amik Robertson apparently has been looking really really good in training camp right now. With the lack of Terrion Arnold and Ennis Rakestraw due to injury, neither of them are practicing, so he has had to step up in that kind of cornerback two role. And I mean, as we saw last year, the dude locked down fucking Justin Jefferson. So obviously he is capable of these things, which kind of like
Is that
call
hard to
me.
do?
I mean, I think I could do it. I don't know. That's just me.
I know you're being sarcastic, but if you could, you would not be here with me, my friend.
No, hey, you ain't wrong, brother. That's like a small aside. I was playing basketball at the Y the other day, and this dude comes up to me and he's like, "Bro, where'd you play?" I'm like, "What?" And he's like, "Where'd you play ball?" I'm like, "Nowhere in high
My
school. Like, what are you talking
driveway?
about? Like, what the fuck, bro?" And he was just like, "I don't know, bro. I thought you played in college." Meanwhile, I'm 5'10", 260 pounds, folks. So that doesn't even make any damn sense if you looked at me. I'm just saying, like, so that just blew my mind. But speaking of people, saying shit that's unrealistic, I just felt the need to bring that up. Now, back to Amik Robertson locking up Justin Jefferson. I feel like it's kind of don't call me crazy, okay? I feel like why did we go out and get so many corners when we have guys like Amik? You know what I mean? I feel like we may have, I don't know if done a disservice to him by doing that in a way because obviously he's up the depth chart because of Rakestraw and Arnold being injured. But there's guys like Rock Sin that have looked really good so far in training camp and the preseason game. It's like obviously it's always great to have more depth, but when I saw that we were signing all these corners, I'm like, damn, what does this mean for Amik? Which right now, obviously he's winning the battle, so that's great. Great to see. Because when he did that against Justin Jefferson, I was like, did we just find a diamond in the rough? And I was a fan of him in free agency too, but I didn't think he was going to do that
I was,
necessarily.
yeah, I was a big fan of him. To be honest, I never heard of him when he was playing for Vegas. Keep wanting to say Oakland for Raiders, but when he was playing for Vegas. But um, one tidbit that's just kind of put in the back of my head with him is he led our team last year in forced fumbles, and he wasn't even like a full-time starter. I know once, oh, I'm spacing on the name, nickel corner, not Branch, but once our nickel corner went down, or maybe when Branch moved to safety to fill the void. Either way, when Amik got more reps, he not only like held his own, he thrived. Like I feel
Hmm.
like he's locked into the starting slot position with Terrion Arnold and DJ Reed on the outside. Obviously, Kirby and Branch will be our safeties. Um, but like I really like our defensive backs. I don't I don't want to undersell them or overhype them. I like our linebackers. I'm not in love with our linebackers, but they're solid. Like no complaints. And as we mentioned before, I think our D line, once everyone's healthy, can thrive. So I'm really looking forward to watching this defense as a whole this upcoming season.
Yeah, I totally agree with that, especially with the new defensive coordinator. Like, look, man, I love Aaron Glenn. Okay, don't get me wrong. But there were some things that we did on defense that I was confused about sometimes. And I'm not going to sit here and say that I know better than Aaron Glenn, but it was a bit confusing. So I wonder what that's going to look like with with Shepard, because I obviously, as we mentioned before, it's not going to be a whole different defense. It's not like we're going to see fucking some weird shit going on, or like we might, I guess, who knows what could happen. But I feel Shepard's going to have a pretty similar scheme. I don't know if how we talked about before. We might move to more of an odd front type situation, more of a 3-4, which I think makes sense with the personnel we have. I mean, when we were talking about our defensive line earlier, I immediately went to the 3-4 with that 5 front, because think about it. If you have, Aiden Hutchinson playing like the jack, which is, your outside linebacker, you then can also have, Tyleek, and this is if McNeil is back, of course, Tyleek Williams, DJ Reader at the nose, McNeil next to him. So you have Tyleek at the 3, Reader at the nose, McNeil at a 5, and then you have a guy like Marcus Davenport or somebody playing that other side. That's a pretty fucking formidable front, guys. I mean, especially if we're talking like goal line situation, it's going to be hard to do a lot against that, and like you mentioned, our linebackers are pretty good as well. So, and then of course our DBs, our DBs, honestly, dude, might be the best thing on our fucking team. Like, to be
100%.
real, like they're so deep. And like a guy like Rock Sin, I mean, he started multiple seasons in his career, and I feel like he's come on and been really good for us, and he's still young. So I mean, he could be one of those pleasant surprises, similar to like an Amik Robertson that we were talking about before.
Yeah, um, I think corners and receivers are our deepest positions on this team. Um, Especially with like younger guys showing out. Like even Lovett looked solid. I know he just got hurt. Um, I don't, I don't want to take your job. I'm not gonna, because I know you have a long to-do list here, but he's not gonna be out a long time. It does not look like he's gonna play this upcoming week, but or this week I should say, but he should be fine for next week. But yeah, it's just like uh, with all of I'm trying to tie all this in together with, as you mentioned, with signing all those corners, and our defensive backs could be our deepest position in terms of depth. We took what is a weakness from last year and turned it into our strength.
Hmm.
And some of it was just via injury. Some of it was Terry and Arnold just being a rookie. Like, you just make some rookie mistakes. He obviously showed the flashes, and everything I've read about him this year, he's way more consistent and looking great. But the Lions as a team did rank 30th in yards allowed. So we were a bottom 3 team versus the pass last year. And some of that might have been corner related. Obviously, those are the guys that cover. Some of that might have been pass rush related because no corner, even Prime Revis, isn't covering for 8 seconds. So with Hutch back, we already mentioned the D line. We already mentioned the upgrades as in the defensive backs as well. They're just going to feed off each other. Linebackers just clean up the rest of the mess in the middle. Um, Man, is it game day?
Yeah, right. We're
I
almost
just want to
there.
watch them, man. Oh,
With that being said, though, our our DB room and our wide receiver room is very deep. I would agree with that. However, I would almost say our offensive line is deeper than our wide receiver room, simply because, like, in the preseason game last week, like, what, 5 of our top, let's see, one, two, three, four. Four of our top 5 offensive players on PFF were offensive linemen, and it was none of our starters. So that to me is a really, really big deal, because you have, a team that relies on our offensive line, of course. And now we have it to where we have a backup center, 2 backup guards, 2 backup tackles, that if something were to happen, obviously they're not fucking replacing Panay Sewell, but they can be serviceable and not just totally shit their pants. Whereas, as we saw on Friday, our fucking quarterbacks can't do that. They shit their pants, both of them.
we have
So
quarterbacks?
I, I don't think so. I don't fucking know. I guess not. It's like, why the fuck? I'm like, the Browns did something better than us. They signed Tyler Huntley, and those motherfuckers got seven quarterbacks all fucking ready. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, what are they doing with Shador? We've seen a lot of rumors going around of a trade. I don't think that's going to happen. That would just be a weird situation. Um,
I see it happen. I don't see it happening. Let me rephrase, but I see a way it could happen. Their room is full. To be honest, I wouldn't mind picking up someone that they cut because they're not going to have all of
right.
those quarterbacks. But whether that be a Huntley or even a veteran like Flacco, although I doubt they will let him go. I think he's been one of their better quarterbacks through camp so far. But yeah, they're not going into the season with seven quarterbacks. But I just don't see a way. Um, I don't want to make the whole this whole segment about Shador, but I can see him because they announced that he's going to start and play a good amount of reps their second or their first preseason game. It's only our second preseason game. Um, but they mentioned that the kid from Oregon, I'm spacing on his name,
Dylan Gabriel.
him, Flacco, and one other of their quarterbacks won't play at all. Like they won't even be suited up.
Hmm.
So as we know, at least for the vast majority of teams, you don't play your starters in preseason. So if you're giving someone a whole lot of reps in the preseason, that's normally not a good sign. So
I mean, yes and no, because think about it this way, right? If you're a team like the Lions, which this will kind of segue into another point, Hendon Hooker is going to start our Friday game against Atlanta.
don't remind me.
Man. And so he's going to be the guy playing most of the snaps for us. Now, do I think that means we're going to cut him? Not necessarily. What I think especially for the Browns, I think it means that they have so many quarterbacks. And I would say it's not a great sign for Shador. However, I do think that this is just them saying, like, all right, we need to see you in game action to kind of actually make a decision here. Now, first of all, if you are going to trade for Shador Sanders, why didn't you just draft him? Okay, that's my question. Two, if the Browns are going to cut Shador Sanders, why did they draft him? Okay. And three, if the Browns are going to trade Shador Sanders, why did they draft him? So as you can see, naturally it all comes back to the draft that just fucking happened 2 months ago. And we're talking about, well, this guy is going to get, well, shit, 3 months ago now. Holy shit.
Say,
It,
like we're in August, where it's almost 4 months.
Fucking A, dude. The summer flew by. Um, but point being, it's like, why would the Browns take less than a fifth round pick for him if they just gave up a fifth round pick to get him? Why would they cut him? Because think about it this way. The only two guys right now that they owe any guaranteed money to, or I guess Flacco probably has some as well, is Gabriel and Shador Sanders because they were drafted. So monetarily, right? I don't believe Kenny Pickett is that much better than Shador or Dylan Gabriel that you'd
No,
cut Shador for him. Okay. Now Tyler Huntley, I think, is kind of just like a body for them, in my opinion. Um, we'll
that's
see
the
where that
guy I
goes.
would want personally
Yeah,
if
I
he was
liked
to go.
Huntley a lot. I'm a big fan of Huntley. I wanted him this offseason also. So, I mean, we'll see what happens. If he does get cut, I would be surprised, but crazier shit has happened, you know?
It is the Browns. That is the
Right,
wild card factor because you do
right.
bring up multiple good points. It wouldn't make logical sense to draft him and then just cut him. But not every draft pick makes the team, and maybe they drafted him based on his college film, and they're not seeing it applied in practice, or they're not seeing that next step that they thought they might get out of him. And I wouldn't. I'm how to word it. I'm not a Shooter fan, but I do think it's kind of silly to give up on a guy after a couple months. And as you mentioned, who would trade for him? They could have just drafted him. But the Browns themselves drafted a quarterback prior to drafting him. So it's like, why did they draft him to begin with when they already used a third round pick? So like, there's a lot of mystery. I'll just say that around there.
Yeah. Yeah, that's valid. But getting back to the Detroit Lions.
Oh yeah.
We will now. So let's see, where were we? Next thing was Ndamukong Suh was at training camp today, which I'm sure everybody kind of saw and heard about what he said and all this and that. And I mean, he's been saying this for a while. I think I just don't think it's been like a big like story because he didn't say it at our training camp. But has felt slighted by the Lions since he left. I mean, I thought that was pretty obvious. Whether it be because they didn't pay him or whether it be because he just felt like they didn't like there apparently there's a story with his rookie contract where the team drafted him and every year the pay scale goes up or whatever, and they drafted him with the number one pick, and they drafted Stafford with the number two pick. They drafted Stafford with the number one pick as well, and then the next year they told Sue, "You're going to get less money than Stafford because he's our quarterback and you're a defensive tackle." He was not
Okay.
happy about that, which I get, but I understand it from both sides, right? It's like you're trying to get your money, you're trying to get yours, and if anything, he could even say, "Well, look, man, I'm the one really putting my body on the line." Like I get that this guy is the quarterback and the offense and whatever, but I'm a defensive tackle. That means I have to literally just throw my body on around every play. So it's like I get why he wants more money, but I also understand from the team perspective like, look, man, from a value, standpoint, it's not there. So it started there, and then it kind of became a thing when he left for Miami. Obviously we all remember that. I was fucking hurt because Ndamukong Suh was probably my second favorite Lion behind Calvin Johnson. So, and as someone who played the same position and everything, it was like I modeled my game after him, quote unquote. So it's like it sucked when he left, but now to hear, kind of what happened, and I get it from both sides, man. Like he got paid in Miami, and he
Oh yeah.
kind of didn't like he had a year or two where he was still pretty good, but I mean, I don't feel like he was really in Suh once he left Detroit. So,
He wasn't. Yeah.
and who knows why that was? Sometimes guys get money and they kind of take a step back or whatever the case may be. It might have been a schematic issue. Who knows? But a guy like Suh, who, by the way, almost won the fucking Heisman as a defensive tackle. Okay, he was that good. Just kind of phased out once he got paid. So I was personally happy the Lions didn't pay him, you know, after the fact because of that reason. But with that being said, what are your thoughts on this whole Ndamukong Suh situation?
You haven't lost me. I just haven't spoke yet. Um, I want to think about how I want to attack this because sometimes honesty is not the best policy. Um, I am not a Sioux fan. I was when he was here. I was a big Sioux fan when he was here. One of my first vivid memories is my dad taking me out to dinner and me being at the dinner table saying, "Hey, we got to wrap this up. The draft starts in like 10 minutes and the Lions pick number 2. Like, let's go." And that's because I was hoping we drafted Sue. We did. He was great while he was here. Um, but he does not, at least with the kind of mindset in the Lions' values today, he doesn't fit in here. He's a me first guy. And don't get me wrong, every professional athlete wants to be paid. Of course. Like, if I was him, I would say not everything he said, but I would want my money too. Like, he was having major impacts on games, and I was gonna say should have been paid like it, but he was, in my opinion. He would hit between him, Calvin, and Stafford. They took up like 60% of the whole team's cap, which is one of the reasons we only had 3 good players. But like you mentioned, after Detroit, I have his stats up here. Let's see: Miami, Rams, Bucks, Philly. He was on 4 other teams in a 6-year span after us. So like he never really found a home again. And I remember when we did first draft him, his agent, before he even signed his rookie contract, got a year shorter on the deal than most rookies did at that time. That was before the automatic 4-year contract. That was before the rookie pay scale. That was before, the 5th year option and all that. Because his agent flat said he wants to get to free agency sooner. He wanted to get to a second contract sooner. And I'm just like, in my opinion, he did everything he could to get out of Detroit as fast as he could. He did join us when we weren't obviously that great. Um, but I got a bad taste in my mouth from him, man. Like, he was a great player on Sundays, but uh, any other day of the week, I don't want nothing to do with him. I roll my eyes when I see him at practice. Personally, he's not a guy I would want at practice. I guess, in a sense, he's my Hulk Hogan. We mentioned that last week that some people were up in arms about it. I'm like, I just feel like he's a selfish, um, arrogant player. And like I said, don't get me wrong, he was a hell of a player. He'll make the Hall of Fame, no problem. But yeah, that's not a guy I would want in my locker room, at least right now.
Yeah, and I hear you. I just think the way my perspective on the whole situation, right, is that Ndamukong Suh was too smart for his own good. Okay, I feel like Ndamukong Suh didn't really love football. I think Ndamukong Suh is a guy who was a legitimate, like, very, very smart person, and like what he did in college can attest to that. I can't remember exactly what it was off the top of my head, but he was like doing like some crazy science shit or something like that. So he is like, I think, a businessman first in the sense of his playing career, right? And I can respect that. I can understand that because at this point, if you're someone who, I'm sure he loved football, but he doesn't love it, I would say, like some other people might. You know what I mean? Like, I think he just realized I'm a huge motherfucker. I'm a great athlete, and I enjoy this sport enough that I'm going to try to, be really good at it. And that might say why he kind of fell off after he got paid. I mean, think about it. He's like, I want to get to that second contract faster. I want to get as much money as I can, guaranteed, blah, 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 so that once I get this money, I feel like I made it. I don't really, because he then became a legitimate businessman. Like, he took the money he got in Miami, and obviously he was doing it in Detroit too, but he took the money he got in Miami and made a bunch of different businesses. Like, I mean, shit, he was on a couple episodes of Ballers because he was super into business. So
Yeah, him and
that's
his
kind of what I
sister
think.
own a few businesses. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's my perspective on it. Like, trust me, I was pissed when he left, but like, I kind of get it. And I try to not always look at things from only a fan perspective because I think sometimes things get skewed, especially when we talk about like money or even injuries. I feel like for some reason, like from the fan perspective, fans like get pissed when a guy gets injured, and it's like, bro, he can't fucking do anything about that. I don't know, like, what is he supposed to do? He's playing fucking football, and like, you're mad because he got a hurt ankle or some shit. You know what I mean? And it's like, oh, my favorite thing is when people go, what the fuck? He's been out 2 weeks for turf toe. What is this dude, a pussy? And it's like, hey, bro, do you not know what turf toe is?
I was gonna say that's the first thing if I would read, I'd be like, guess who's never had turf toe? The guy that
Yeah,
wrote that.
it's like, turf toe is a broken fucking toe. That's what that means. It's just because they're like, oh, you hurt yourself on the turf. It's like, no, it literally is a term for a specific break in your toe because it happens so often, specifically from turf. That's it. And it's like, but people don't know that, so they just say, oh, like, I remember my dad was one of those people where he would just be like I remember specifically Cam Newton one time was out 2 weeks with turf toe, and he was like, who the fuck, what the fuck is going on with this pussy? Da, 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 da. I'm like, if only you knew, bro. If only you fucking knew.
Especially a terrible quarterback. Like, I feel like
Exactly.
maybe someone like Brady might be able to
Yeah.
play through it, and no, not just because Brady, but a pocket quarterback.
Hmm.
But Cam Newton's always moving around. There's no, yeah, no,
Absolutely no way.
yeah.
And that's pretty much my 2 cents on that. But with the Sue thing, I just do feel like he was just a businessman first, and I can respect it. I don't have to like it, but I can respect it because that's what it is
And I can
at the
agree
end of
with
the
you
day.
on that. James, don't blame him. He got big paydays. He went to Miami, no state income tax there, so it's a little bit of a
Hmm.
cheat code, anyways. But that's a whole another topic. But as a Detroit fan, I hated it. But
Yeah.
yeah, like person to person, I don't blame him. But as a Lions fan, like you took your extra money, you kind of, I mean, you didn't kind of, you left us, and now you're just coming back to training camp now that we're good.
Yeah.
It's like, why don't you go to a Miami training camp or Tampa Bay training camp or oh,
Yeah.
whatever. I'll digress.
I mean, I get it. I get it. I do feel like that is a kind of a sign of respect, though, too, where it's like, hey, I'm here. Like, yeah, I guess he could have came back at some point, but I mean,
Respect us
I,
after we went 15-2.
okay, you could say the same thing about Calvin Johnson. You could. You could make the exact same argument. He
Person to
retired.
person, I'm not a big fan of him either.
Okay, that's valid. If that's how you feel, that's how you feel. And
Love him as
I
a player.
feel right. And I feel like yes, I do agree. Ndamukong Suh is a bit of an arrogant kind of guy, like in general too. So I do get where you're coming from with that. But now moving on, we'll try to kind of wrap this up because we have been going on for a little while here. Alex Anzalone just got a new deal, reworked deal, not an extension. They just fully guaranteed his contract this year and added some incentives on top, which is great. It's great, but he's probably still not that happy about it. I mean, that kind of tells me we're probably not bringing him back next year. Unfortunately, like the fact that we're still having this conversation and then all we did was give him his contract this year fully guaranteed as like respect, that's a sign. And I think, like we mentioned before, Jack Campbell and Derek Barnes are probably next up, and that's why we gave Barnes the deal we gave him and drafted Campbell. I mean, we talked about that quite a bit last week, so we don't have to go on for too long there. Um, Last thing, we will kind of go over, sorry, second to last thing, quarterbacks. I know we talked about this before a little bit, but we don't have a backup quarterback. We just don't. We do not. Like, genuinely, I would feel better about putting Amon Ra back there, I think, than just based off that one pass. Or even Montgomery. He threw a dot to Jared Goff. I'm just saying. So maybe, like, we'll see what happens. Put him in the Wildcat, run some read option, make it feel like high school. Um, but I feel like there are a handful of quarterbacks that are available that I think could be an upgrade over, both of the guys we have right now, Kyle Allen and Hendon Hooker. Of course, Carson Wentz, we all know, I saw him play live one time when the Lions beat the Commanders like 2 years ago in like week two, the year that we won our first playoff game. That was like a big game for me because it was the first Lions win I'd ever seen in person. Um, and I just remember Hutch had this like safety, I think, or a sack at the 1 yard line that was just insane. But Carson Wentz actually kind of balled out that game a little bit, especially in the second half, because we were up like 30 in the first half and we only ended up winning by, I think, 10. And I mean, obviously that was a few years ago, but Wentz has spent time with the Chiefs, in the last few years as their backup. And I feel like from what I can remember, he had a few times that he had to play with Mahomes being injured or whatever the case, and he looked solid. And I feel like he could be a guy that we could bring in that would add, a veteran presence. He's been there, done that. He's been on Super Bowl winning teams. I feel like he's not a starter, of course, but he could be a solid backup that would be better than what we have right now. And then also CJ Beathard, he's kind of like a more lower level guy, I think. I would say he's probably similar to Kyle Allen. I don't even know if he's better right now, but I think it'd be worth at least bringing him in. He played in San Francisco for a while, so he was used to a similar scheme to what we have. Um, and then Mike White, okay, I think is kind of intriguing. I don't know if you guys remember Mike White, but he was the guy that came in a couple years ago in New York with the Jets when I think it was when Aaron Rodgers went down. But it could have even been when Zach Wilson went down because I feel like they went Rodgers to Wilson, then to White. And what happened was Mike White played so well. Or no, actually, I might be misremembering that. I do believe it was Zach Wilson's like rookie year or second year when they benched Zach Wilson and Mike White started, and then Mike White was kind of doing pretty well. He threw for like 400 plus yards in prime time in his first start, and ever since, and he kind of was like very Jeremy Lin-esque, I guess is the best way to put it. He had like a handful of games where he just went kind of nuts and then he just kind of disappeared. So
Matt Flynn.
he's what's that?
Matt
Matt
Flynn.
Flynn. Yeah, yeah, good. That's a good comparison there. Lions fans
I say
have
unfortunate for
fucking
us.
nightmares. Have fucking nightmares about that dude. Holy shit. That honestly is one of my least favorite Lions games I've ever watched in my entire life. But I digress on that one. Now back to Mike White though. He's a little intriguing because of that kind of run he had. He hasn't really played much since then, so we'll kind of see. It'd be worth kind of like with Beathard, bring him in, see what he's got. I mean, come on, it's at least worth a fucking shot with what we got right now. And then also Ben DiNucci, he played in Dallas for a few years, and I think he could be same. It's look, man, I'm gonna just be honest with you guys right now. There's nobody coming off the street right now that you're like, yeah, he's definitely better than what we have right now, and that's kind of fucking scary. Okay, um, if we had Tyler Huntley out there still, I would say he's an upgrade,
I'd
but
say
he got
Huntley
signed.
and Huntley and Wentz, I think,
Yeah,
could not be worse
yeah,
than
that's
we
valid.
have.
That's
The
valid. I
other
think
guys we'll
Wentz.
see 50-50, whatever. But
Yeah, for sure. I would agree with that. Wentz is probably the only one that I'd go, yeah, he's probably better. And then last but not least, we have the Lions legend Jeff Driscoll. He is still available, and obviously he's not the best quarterback ever, but he did start a few games for us. He started a handful of games in the NFL, and he wasn't terrible in those games. So it's at least worth bringing him in, looking at what he's got. I mean, that's pretty much all we can do right now with what we have at quarterback, outside of Jared Goff, of course. But then moving on to kind of wrap this up with our last point. Last week's preseason game obviously was a loss. I mean, I'm not going to get into it too much. I don't really give a fuck about preseason score. I mean, one of my friends texted me and he goes, "Hey, bro, should I put $10 on the Lions to win tonight?" And I said, "No. What the fuck are you
what?
doing, you degenerate? Like, what is happening? You're betting on preseason football?" And I was like, also bet against us because the Lions like purposefully lose preseason games. I feel like
Absolutely.
Dan Campbell, we'll be up 2 points with like 4 minutes left. It'll be fourth and 17 on our own like 32, and he's like, "Fuck it, chuck it." Like it's
Yeah,
like, yeah, it's just what we're doing. It's preseason, bro.
absolutely.
It's a scrimmage, pretty much. Like that's
It's
the
an
way I look at it.
Absolutely. It's an organized scrimmage. I
Hmm.
saw a few people freaking out and say maybe it's not the year, and I'm like, no starters played, none.
Look, my favorite thing to say is when anyone says anything about preseason, I say, "Hey, do you remember in 2008 when the Lions didn't win a single game?"
Yes.
Right. They won every preseason game.
Yes.
So I
4-0 to 0-16.
like what? Yeah, I would almost say it's like that's why we try to lose because it's like we don't need to 0 and 16 again. Um, no, but point being, we had a bad game scoreboard wise, but there were a few guys that kind of stood out and definitely played well. As I mentioned before, we had four of our top five offensive guys graded by PFF were along the offensive line. Keode Awosika, Dan Skipper, Colby Sorsdahl, and Natane Muti are those guys, and those are all our second stringers, which that's a great sign, I think, like I mentioned before. Having, four backup offensive linemen that played really well is really awesome. Obviously, Isaac Tesla played really well as well. Defensively, Ahmad Hassanine, he played pretty well. Nate Lynn, Rock Sin, both played pretty well as well on defense. Obviously, I mentioned Rock Sin quite a bit already throughout this podcast, but I do feel he might be the one to watch for that defensive back group. He could kind of climb that depth
All
chart, I
right, man,
think.
just go to Fanatics and get his jersey already.
I mean, shit. If he would have signed more than 1 year deal, I might have because I just love the way he plays, And Dan Campbell has brought him up a handful of times as well, so I could see him being like that first guy off the bench for us and our first rotational guy. He's not gonna play a bunch or anything, but it's just nice to have somebody like him off the bench.
Absolutely. He's definitely an upgrade over Vildor and those guys of the past.
Yeah, that's for sure. I actually saw, kind of an aside, I saw a post comparing last year's cornerback room to this year's, and then I saw another one that was comparing 2 years ago when it was like this was the Lions' first playoff win in whatever many years. This was our DB room, and then it was like this is our DB room in 2025, and it was like our sixth guy was better than our second best guy
Oh yeah.
back then. So I mean that should really tell us all we need to know. Um, but speaking of offensive linemen, Giovanni Manu was kind of our third string left tackle. He played pretty well. I would have liked to see him play a little bit more. He definitely did better in run blocking than pass blocking. So, and it does sound like the coaches believe he's got a long way to go still. So, not great right now. It also does seem like they want him to play primarily at left tackle. So, we'll kind of see how that goes. Um, I will say this. Lions fans, do not get too excited about him being Decker's replacement
Okay.
because it might not happen. I'm not saying it won't happen, but the chances are that it does are very low. Not because he looks bad, it's just because with his age, he hasn't played a lot of football, he's got a long way to go. We probably only have 2 more years of three max of Decker playing at a high level, so it'll have to happen sooner than later, unfortunately. And then uh, Dan Jackson is also out for the season, our rookie seventh round pick safety out of Georgia. I was a big fan of his. Dan Campbell seemed to be a big fan of his too when he talked about him, in training camp and things when he was healthy. But he is unfortunately out for the year. And then, as I mentioned before, Hendon Hooker is going to start the game on Friday. So we'll see how that goes. Um, Oh, I don't think I mentioned this already, but last point here. Ennis Rakestraw hurt his shoulder, and he will be out for quite a while, per Dan Campbell. So not great news. Looks like we lost James, but it does look like he is back, so that's good. But yeah,
Sweet.
not great news on the Rakestraw stand or the Rakestraw front, but it is what it is, and this is why we have such, you know, good depth at corner. And I will say, look, man, he didn't look that great when he was playing. Okay.
Nope.
So I don't think it's going to be that big of a loss. Honestly, I think by game one, Rockyasin probably was going to take that spot anyway. So,
With what have seen in the first game and then the countless injuries he's sustained, I agree with you. I'm just bummed because that was my breakout candidate of the year, and that was a guy who, in his rookie training camp and preseason, looked phenomenal. So I don't know if he's still hurt. I don't know if it just the accrued time that he's missed because of his injury. I can't put my finger on it, but he was looking good, and then he did not last Thursday. He did not look good at all. So we'll see what happens. But as we mentioned earlier in the podcast, we do have a deep cornerback room, so someone can step up and take that spot from him. I'm still hoping he's got something left because, I mean, it's only year two and he's a second round pick. So, like, I don't want to give up on him quite yet, but yeah, he's been looking rough, unfortunately.
yeah, that's for sure. But that was our last Lions segment for the show. So, stick around. We are going to talk some Tigers here in a second. But before we do, you should head over to, click the link in the description and head over to Fanatics and buy yourself some new gear because they've got some really good deals going on right now with Lions gear, Tigers gear, all types of stuff. So if you want a Rock Ya Sin jersey, for instance, they got it. Go get you one. If you want to get that Aiden Hutchinson jersey before he has his best career year, there's the place to get it. If you click our description, we do get a small piece, and you would help, you know, represent us and help us out while also getting a good deal on some good stuff. So, with that being said, you should also try trytheworld.com, which the link will be in the description as well for that. And that is just simply trying different snacks from across the globe. I mean, it's literally that simple. You pay a price, they send you the snacks to your door, and you get to try the world. So, check that out as well. Link is in the description. And now we will move on to our Detroit Tigers segment as we had a loss today, unfortunately. And I'm sure you're going to talk about that. So I will just hand the mic over to you for our Tigers update.
Fire everyone. No, if you go on Twitter or X or whatever you want to call it. That's what 90% of my comments I read are is fire this guy, fire that guy, and no, normally I'm the guy who's been getting called a pessimist and want people fired. But last I checked, which was about 20 minutes before we started the show, we are still in first place in our division. And I saw somebody post that the lead in our division is now only 6 games. Well, yes, that is smaller than it used to be. At one point in time, we had, I think it was an 11 game lead. But for those who care about around the league and not just Tigers, I looked up the lead in each division so that way we can look at what a 6 game lead in our division might look like compared to the other divisions. AL East, the leader is up by 3 games. In the AL West, the leader is also up by 3 games. I already mentioned in the AL Central, the Tigers are up by 6. NL East is 2.5, which is the smallest. NL Central is 4 games, and the NL West is 3 games. So we still have the biggest lead of any division leader in baseball. And people are asking for our GM and president to be fired.
I
I
feel like this is something we talk about all the time on this show with Detroit sports fans. It's like we lose our fucking minds. I don't know what it is, but this town, it's like we're insane sometimes because it's like, yeah, oh, Brad Holmes didn't draft a defensive end when I thought he should. Fire him. Like what? Like I saw a guy tweeted yesterday. He was like, if Brad Holmes doesn't win a Super Bowl in the next 3 years,
I
he
saw
should be
that.
fired. And he was like talking about how we missed our window, and it's because he fucked up. And it's like he got us here, bro. What the fuck? Like what? We could still be going 9-7, fucking, or 9-8 now, I guess. But we could be doing that, and Matthew Stafford would still be our fucking quarterback, and we'd be sitting over here like, great. I love the same shit. We wouldn't have won any playoff games, guys. Think about
Do
it
you want
that
to
way.
do you want to go back to the 6 win Patricia teams?
Exactly. Do you remember that New York Jets game, opening fucking
Oh
game of
Jesus
the year,
Christ.
where the it started with a Quandre Diggs interception, and we all
Pick
thought,
six.
"Holy shit, Matt Patricia's taking us to the fucking promised land," and then we proceeded to get blown the fuck out by
We
Sam
don't even win
Darnold.
that game, yeah.
Uh,
It
we could do that. I mean, fuck. Like, oh
Yeah,
my god,
I
people are
posted
so
on
ungrateful.
100%, and I posted about that on X, mentioning all the things, and I'm going to touch on that a little bit here. But yeah, like, yes, over the last 2 weeks, we have not looked great. Like, I'll say that. Over the last, excuse me, 10 games, we are 6-4, so we are still above 500. People act like, we're 0-10 the last 10 games, but we have the
Right.
biggest lead over any division in baseball. Two of our three main competitors, because the White Sox are a joke of they might get beat by a high school team, not actually, but the, in terms of teasing and just BSing your rivals, yes. There are like 20 some games out there so far behind I didn't even write it down. Um, but the Twins and the Guardians sold at the deadline. The Guardians got rid of two of their starting pitchers, their closer, who unfortunately beat us recently. But like these guys were the ones trading away pieces, and the Tigers added. And as I touched on in the last podcast, I know we didn't add any earth-shattering, ground-shaking moves. We did not go out and get like this guy. You're not going to see any Paddock jerseys in the crowd or anything like that. But there's a reason we got them. They are at least serviceable. And right now, that's basically all we need as long as we can still lean on Scooble and our offense when it decides to show up. Because unfortunately, it has been hit or miss. We are, at least as of last week, that was the last time I looked it up, fifth total in the whole league in terms of scoring runs. So even if we dropped a little bit, I'm confident in saying we are still top 10, if we're not in the top 5. But some of those arms that we got at the deadline were Very good. Paddock, his first start with us was a very solid start. I'm spacing Morton from the Orioles had a very good start, and we won those games. Paddock's second start was a different story, unfortunately, but once again, we traded no top 10 prospects to get these guys. It's kind of uh, like fans almost want to trade for the like Paul Skeens and give away nothing in return. It's like we got some average to maybe slightly below average bullpen arms and starting pitching, but we gave up next to nothing. We still have all of our top 10 future prospects in our farm system, which I would say the top five of those are like legit. Keep an eye on these guys. They're like rocking shit in the minors, and they could be the guys that the next Green, the next Torkelson, the guys who are playing for the Tigers organization. Um, I'd say starting next year or maybe the year after for the next 10 years after. So we didn't mortgage our future, and we still got some help. Yes, it's not the best help, but we got some help. Um, Today, as you mentioned, we lost 9-4, and Flaherty was our starting pitcher today. And what I don't understand is when Paddock had a bad game and he allowed 4 runs in 4 innings, people were saying, cut him. Just flat, like, we just traded a 19-year-old prospect for him, but fuck it, cut him, get rid of him completely, even though he won his start for us before that. So he's 1-1 as a Tigers pitcher. So I don't understand that. Flaherty, in 4 and 2/3 innings, gave up 8 hits, 5 earned runs, and only had 3 strikeouts to 1 walk. That's worse than Paddock did. But I did not see a single get rid of Flaherty or cut Flaherty or anything like that. So apparently Flaherty's allowed to suck as long as Paddock goes too. It makes no sense. Um, and I want to be more positive about the Tigers because although we are in this current slump that we are in, like I said, we're still over 500 the last 10 games. We still have the biggest lead in baseball over teams that are rebuilding, so I don't think they can maintain their current runs. And in terms of the people that want Scott Harris fired, and I even saw someone say, like, if you still support Scott Harris, like, you don't know ball and stuff like that. And I'm like, if we win this division, because right now we're currently leading it, there's still plenty of baseball left to be played. But if we win this division, it would be our first division win in 11 years. Why would we fire the guy who made us the best team that we've had in 11 years? Last year, not only did we just make the playoffs, we went to round two. So we would have made back-to-back playoffs as long as we maintain this. And I will say, if we end up losing this division or not making playoffs, okay, time to have a conversation. But that's if, not now. As for now, we have the best Tigers team in 10, 11 years. And we're coming off a playoff win, or a season of a playoff series win. So I'm like, I don't even think his seat's warm, let alone hot. And as you mentioned before, and here's my avoid earlier in the segment because I didn't want to get it mixed in with our line stuff. And I understand it's different sports. I understand some fans only watch the Tigers, some fans only watch the Lions, some fans only watch the Wings, etc., etc. Tons do watch all of them. I don't know how, as a city and as my feed says on X, I can have so many Tigers fans wanting Harris to be fired after making the playoffs and winning in the playoffs and leading their division, but Steve Yzerman needs another 3 years.
Right.
It's only year 7 of the rebuild. They said it was going to be a 10-year rebuild. Okay, but you want the guy who just had success and is currently leading to be fired, but not the guy who hasn't done shit for 6 years? Like, I didn't want to make the segment about Fire Iserman because, like I said, so far for this offseason and only looking at this offseason in a window, I've agreed with what he's done this year. The other years, no. So, like, I don't want to just kind of go off a rant and have Iserman catch a stray, but as a fan base, we hold some people to winning expectations and others no. Like if we win the division for the first time in 11 years, you still want him fired, but a guy who is currently the GM of a hockey team in Hockey Town is currently on their longest playoff drought in franchise history. He just needs more time.
Preach.
Where is the standard as fans?
Well, it's like that guy on Twitter that we talked about a couple weeks ago. I can't remember how long ago now. But this guy tweeted out saying that he has been a Lions season ticket holder for 50 years or whatever the case may be, and that he said if they don't win the Super Bowl next season, he's going to quit being a Lions fan. So, just let me break this down from a logic standpoint, okay? You went through the Stafford era, and you were cool with that. That worked. Matt Patricia, that was fine. That was totally fine. But we get to winning, and you decide, this isn't enough for me. All right, call me crazy, but I just thought of an analogy, and maybe it's not the best analogy, but I'm going to use it anyway. That's like being married to a woman for 40 years, and you say, hey, babe, let's have a threesome. And she says, no. And you go, let's get divorced then. That doesn't make any fucking sense, bro. I'm sorry, but that makes zero sense. And it's like, dude, you've spent so much time and effort and energy and money on this team, and you're just going to say, we didn't win the Super Bowl this year. I'm out. Like, what? It's like when we lost to the Niners. People were like, oh, same old Lions, same old Lions. And it's like, hey, buddy, the same old Lions wouldn't have even got this far. So,
Yeah, I just wanted, like I said, I'm like, I know they're different sports. I know they're different points in their career, but Iserman is the longest tenured GM in Detroit. So he's had the most time to rebuild, do his thing, whatever. And like I said, I didn't come on here planning to attack him, but if someone who's done more than him as a Detroit GM is being asked or being told to like get fired, go away, whatever, uh, it no correlation. Like what? Why? I just want consistency. Like if your
right.
standards are, hey, we need to win or we need you gone, fine. If you want to, hey, this is a long-term rebuild, like the Tigers were rebuilding too. They weren't supposed to make the playoffs last year. They
Mm-hmm.
overachieved technically. They're still in their rebuild in theory, but they made the playoffs last year. Somehow won a series against the Astros, and then were the first place team in baseball for the first 5 months of this year. And apparently, like you said, that's just not good enough.
Well,
Now, I'm not.
honestly, sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, I just think it is just when a team is winning in Detroit, the fans get like rabid. You know what I mean? It's like we have to win now. But when they're not winning, it's just like, yep, this is what we do. We suck and we lose. Oh well. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me, really.
It does. Like the highs are too high and the lows are too low.
Hmm.
Like there needs to be some consist. And don't get me wrong. Anyone who follows me on X knows I can be emotional about a game. We get a touchdown, I'm screaming "F yeah," blah blah blah. But like, do keep it in perspective. Kind of like the preseason. Like it's especially with baseball, it's such a long year. Like we are over the 100 game mark. We are past the trade deadline. But like, yeah, we looked bad the last few weeks, but we are still first place, guys. Relax. I hate to quote Aaron Rodgers here, but just relax.
I was gonna say the same thing.
Like,
Which,
damn.
speaking of Aaron Rodgers, all I'm gonna say is I was right. That's all I'm gonna say. That's all I'm gonna say. I don't know if you saw the Jordan Love situation, if you saw what he posted,
I did
but
not.
I was long story short, over the last, few months on the show, I have been a proponent of the positive side of Aaron Rodgers, and I
Yes.
always thought it was kind of overblown the way that people talked about him. And Jordan Love came out and wrote this like memoir about how much Aaron Rodgers helped him when he was a rookie and like this and that. So that's all.
Okay. That's cool. I'm glad. I'm glad, but yeah, yeah. And then I
Yeah,
know
I
you.
mean, I get it. He kicked our ass for a decade, so
Oh yeah, but so did Favre. But you're probably too young to remember Favre. At least
I am, but I
you
would.
probably saw him as a Viking.
I did.
Oh
Yes, I did. The
Jesus.
first Madden I ever played actually had him on the cover as a Jet.
I was gonna say, I remember the cover year was a Jet because I
Yeah.
think that was the same off season he became a Viking. Because back
Hmm.
then I remember it was physical. God, I'm gonna sound like I'm 80, but it was physical disc, and they made a printout that you can download and print at home of the Vikings uniform, so you can just
Oh
slide it in
wow,
your case, so that way it can be a Vikings uniform Favre instead of a Jet.
that's hilarious.
And I'm just like, yeah,
See,
well,
I feel like too Brett Favre. He's got his own scandals to worry about, so I'm gonna just
not
leave it
many
at
when
that.
he was a player, but yes.
Right, right, right. Other
I
than
will
throwing
say,
pick sixes.
yeah, well, that was the territory with him. He was a
Yeah,
gunslinger, so like I will say this as I mean, don't get me wrong, I think throw for throw, career for career, Aaron Rodgers was better than Favre, but as a Lions fan, I feared Favre more than I feared Rodgers.
that's hmm.
I might be in the minority with that
Yeah.
because like I said, I would like if you're telling me both, were free agents and in their prime, I would take Rodgers.
Yeah. I like you said, I was too young to remember the Favre kicking our ass days because like I literally just barely remember the Vikings Favre.
Oh, jeez. I remember
Yeah.
Jets Favre and Green Bay Favre. Him and Donald Driver were just pains in my ass.
Yep.
But yeah. And then the only thing I wanted to touch on, because I know we're running up the time here, and I was debating on even mentioning it just because it is so small. But I'm like, you know what? It's so small, I will just throw it out there. For the Wings content, for what very little. There were just today some trade rumors linking us to Mason McTavish from the Ducks, and I find that situation interesting. I'll say that, but also definitely with maybe like three question marks behind it, because we already made a trade with the Ducks this year for Gibson the goalie. So I'm like, if we were gonna get another player, I don't know why we wouldn't just combine them in the deals and whatever else. But I also don't know why, to be fair, Anaheim would trade him. He's not once again, earth-shattering world beater. Oh, we're gonna win the cup if we get him. But he is pretty damn solid, and he is young. He is only 22 still, and he was playing in the NHL at the NHL level at 19 years old. So he is a four-year pro even at 22. And each year his goals and assists improved each year. So being young, still improving, and they do have a pretty bad roster over there. There's not much help. I don't know why they would give up on him, but I wanted to throw it out there because a reliable, not source, but reliable paper news outlet said that the Wings do have some buzz going on with that. I have no idea what it would take prospect-wise to give up to get him, but I just wanted to make a note that those rumors are out there.
For sure. And we always appreciate the news update because as we've talked about before, it's been kind of an odd season right now for sports in general because like football was dead for a while, baseball was going on, there was a little bit of hockey, and then hockey kind of died and football came back and so it's we got a revolving door of topics here, so it's always nice to have something to talk about with every team. But with that being said, that's going to do it for this show. As always, we appreciate you guys for watching. You can find me at jsosweet, James at gullet_James, and both of us at MI Sports Media and at misportsmedia.com. So with that